Let's wrap up learning the fundamentals of reading from and writing to JSON files in Python by looking at some multi-component or multi-content data structures with some nested complexity to them, just to kind of move our understanding a little bit forward. So to make this a little bit more quick, I am going to just kind of drop some content in here for us to look at and show you what I'm working with. You can always pause and take a closer look at things as we go. But rather than just have a single entry or a simple list, I want to have a little bit more nesting and complexity here. So I have some random facts about science and art. And you'll notice that I have a key in this dictionary set. I have two separate ones, though, two entries that each have a value that is a sub-list. So there's kind of our nested structure, a list within a list going on here, so that I have some kind of details all categorized under one heading. And what I'm doing here is I'm writing these to a file. I'm using a more direct write method here. In our previous tutorials, you saw me first do the dumps behavior. Dump S stands for dump string. It actually returns a string to use and manipulate if you want before writing it. Here's a more direct way to just dump that JSON right away. If we don't need extra kind of fancy editing, we can just be more direct here. So you can kind of take a look at that if you want to use that strategy sometimes. And it's going to write the contents to a file. And then we're just going to load the contents from the file and see what happens. So let's press run on this. And in my facts file, I see that I have all the content beautifully output here as expected. And also note that I've asked to see the actual loaded facts come back in, and it looks like everything is here. And it's also a dictionary, as we might expect from this type of data structure being pulled in from JSON. One more thing I want you to see, though, is that because it's one of our basic data structures, this dictionary structure that JSON works with so beautifully out of the box, I already have this in the proper loaded in format. So I can do things like subquery or sub-access the individual entries, like science. If I access this, I will see just the science subset of data. And if I do art, I see the art subset of information. Awesome. So let's take a look at where this becomes. Oops, what did I press? I collapsed something. I didn't mean to do that. Open this. What I want to do is I want to disable my writing content for now, because I want to just work with reading a file and show you that now that I have a bit of a structure put into place, there's no reason why I couldn't actually add more content myself just by typing it in or even by doing some web scraping or something. Let's go computer science. And I'm going to add some beautiful computer science content to this. I'm going to say computer science, the best subject, which is the first fact we'll need to work with here for sure. A second thing would be it's easier than you think, which I think is true. And third of all, I think that we could put Hello World Classic. And now we can see that we have a typo, and we fixed it. So now we have some new data that hopefully, if we go back into our file and we press read, what have we done here? A delimiter. I didn't save the file after I fixed the error, I think. So let's come back. Perfect. And I was querying just the art section. Let's go back to querying, not querying, I suppose it's just accessing all the content. Here we go. The computer science information's in here. I can also now load the computer science content directly by putting in the key, and then the values will be output from that data type. So wonderful. This kind of dictionary structure is a great way of storing information. It works very beautifully out of the blocks with JSON, and it's a really great thing for you to get used to using. And just so you know, you can nest things even further. You could have a subcategory with its own sublist, and that could have its own sublists. And to access the sublists, you just chain together sublist references really elegantly. Awesome. So make sure you pause if you need to look at this in more detail. But I'm going to kind of be efficient today and head back into some of the previous content that I have prepared for us for this exploration to go specifically back to objects. And let's see here. What do we have? Our student class is the same as our previous tutorials. Make sure you pause and review if you need to. And I still have my dict to student functionality, which does the deserialization. Remember that our JSON, when it pulls the information in about students, we need to do a little conversion from the dictionary type of data into the actual objects. So this is the converter. And then I have two write and read functions that I've refactored to be in their own kind of little context for good coding practices. Let's take a quick look at these. I've built these to anticipate and to work with multi-entry data structures with student objects in them. So no longer are we storing one student at a time, we're storing many students. Perhaps you want to think about this as being a classroom. So down here, I want to make a classroom that contains not just one student, but a list of students that I can write to the file all at once. So we're going to take these students in a file name, and we're going to dump using this object converter to a dictionary so that we can actually store it properly with good indentation for prettifying. And we're just going to write all the contents of this to the file. All right, let's see this in action. So I'm going to, I've pre-made some students here. So let's just snag them and pull them over so I don't have to type for too long. So here's my 3 students. We're going to instantiate them in a basic way. And there we go. We got some people. And in this classroom, I can take student 1, without accidentally replacing the outer syntax here. Student 1, student 2, and student 3 make up this classroom. Awesome. And so all that's left for us to do is to use this utility file. We're going to write students to file, and we need, what was it we did here? Our classroom into a certain file. Let's just call this classroom.json. And let's see what happens. If we made any typos here, it's saved to our classroom, and there we go. We have Scott, Yolanda, and Jeff being output into our file. And we have individual objects, 1, 2, and 3, recorded here and stored properly. So it's no longer just one student at a time. We can now store as many as we want in a classroom, which is really useful. So how do we read these back in? Well, we have our read students from file. So I suppose that we can get our students from the read students from file that we've built above here. And the file that we used was our, where we put this, our classroom.json. Awesome. And let's just see what happens if we print out these students. Sorry for the background noise. We have student object here, and another student object here. So it is successfully telling us that we have 3 student objects in a roundabout way, but we don't see the details of those student objects. Something I forgot to mention in the reading from students, we're actually anticipating to bring in a list of students. We're going to read the file, and we're going to look at them one entry at a time because it's a list of dictionaries, and we know how the JSON knows how to load the dictionaries in, but we're going to append them into a list of dictionaries. But look what I did here. This is a really important line. While appending them to this list, we're actually converting the dictionaries into the objects by nesting another function call to the dictionary dict-to-student functionality. So these are chaining together. The item, the entry of student information, we're converting to a student object and then appending it to the student object list. So we're building the list one entry at a time from that file. Make sure you understand that logic and test it out yourself to make sure you understand it. So here, we're actually getting students, a list of students. So when we're printing out the students, it's a list of them, which means that, well, we should instead do this. Print out the students one at a time from this list. There they are, beautiful. I didn't put course scores in here. You could do so. In fact, I recommend you do to test your understanding. But we are seeing them all output like this. And I could even do something like subquery each of these for something specific, just like their ages. So there's the student ages I can query specifically because their objects, the access of the internal data is a little different than in a dictionary. Remember, the dictionary we would have searched like this for age, but we're not in a dictionary, so this won't work. Different data type. In an object, we do dot age. And make sure that we're remembering how to access the contents of different contexts. And there we go. So now we've seen how to create multi-file lists of more complex things. We did dictionaries, and now we did objects. And I'm sure you can figure out how to work with the other data types as well with a little bit of critical thinking and trial and error. And in fact, I'd love you to try. Spend some time making sure the code in this section works, and maybe try to make your own class. Try to make your own dictionary, maybe not exactly the same as my beautiful one here, but something that mimics the structure, and then see if you can build and get to work the different functionality for it, because you're going to need it in our next video and final one for this section. I'm going to show you a prototype program that you are going to use as inspiration for a custom piece of software you're going to build to show your skill development and to really reinforce your understanding by solving some problems yourself. So see you in that final video soon.